This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
No phone zone. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. New York's new bell-to-bell smartphone ban takes effect next week. Niagara Falls Superintendent Mark Laurie says it's long overdue.
This is coming. You need to adjust to this. We're going to help you. We're going to work with you. But at the end, this is the right thing to do.
Governor Hochul says the ban will change school culture.
All of a sudden, cafeterias that are silent and you only see heads looking down, they're going to be alive again.
The distraction-free schools law was adopted last spring as part of the state budget negotiations. It kicks in next week when the kiddos head back to the classroom. Fed firing feud. That's the other big story today. The president escalating his clash with the Federal Reserve. He's fired a sitting governor of the board. It's a first in the 111-year history of the Fed. Correspondent Gabe Gutierrez.
It is the latest challenge to the independence of the Federal Reserve. Members of the Trump administration had been urging the Justice Department to investigate the Fed governor, but she's not been charged with any crime, and her removal will now likely lead to a fierce court battle.
Lisa Cook accused of mortgage fraud. She calls her firing illegitimate and is refusing to resign. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it a tragic mishap. IDF forces today striking a hospital in Gaza and killing several civilians, including members of the media. Correspondent Molly Hunter.
Among those killed, photographers for two of the biggest international news organizations, the AP and Reuters, a reporter for Al Jazeera, and two freelancers.
Hamas terrorists routinely embed themselves in civilian populations at places like hospitals. The Committee to Protect Journalists in Gaza says nearly 200 journalists have died since the war began. President Trump signed a slew of executive orders yesterday, including one that makes it a crime to burn the American flag. Those who do could get a year in jail. The president says burning flags leads to riots.
Perhaps much more important, it's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy.
In 1989, the U.S. Supreme Court declared flag burning protected speech. In another executive order, the president said he'll take steps to end cashless bail. Attorney General Pam Bondi says cashless bail leads to a revolving door of crime. Another executive order signed yesterday by the president establishes specialized units within the National Guard. Here's reporter Rory O'Neill.
The Defense Department is now under orders to create guard units specifically trained to tame civil unrest. Monday's order comes as the president considers deploying guard troops to cities like Chicago and Baltimore as part of a crackdown on crime. President Trump declared an emergency in Washington and used his authority to take over the police there temporarily. Some local leaders are pushing back, saying the president doesn't have the same authority in their communities. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Indiana Republicans meeting with the president at the White House today. They'll talk redistricting. Indiana may join Texas in redrawing its congressional map to favor Republicans in next year's midterms. Several blue states, including California and New York, plan to do the same to help Democrats in 2026. A massive dust storm called a haboob overwhelmed Phoenix, Arizona yesterday.
We just got a dust storm warning and it's coming in.
The apocalyptic-like weather event shut down the airport and reduced visibility to just a few feet.
You can't see anything. We're in the middle of the haboob.
The haboob was driven by 70-mile-per-hour winds, turned the sky black, and blanketed the Arizona State football stadium with dust. Motorists will be on the move for the upcoming Labor Day weekend. With summer's last hurrah on the horizon, millions of us will be taking to the byways and the skyways. Reporter Maggie Vespa says this Labor Day will cap off the busiest summer travel season in over a decade.
For road trippers, there's more good news. Gas prices remain low, matching the summer average from 2021.
AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular unleaded is about 35 25 cents lower than last year. It should remain relatively low for the rest of summer. It is back. The pumpkin spice latte returning to Starbucks today. The coffee giant calls the fall favorite its most popular seasonal beverage of all time. And also, and this will please you, it's the same price that it was last year. And still to come on the Noon Report for a Tuesday, getting ready for the smartphone ban, state budget impasse in Harrisburg, and more on that remarkable rescue mission on the New York State Thruway.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Cooler than normal for the season through the afternoon. Some spots staying in the 60s over western and central New York. Other areas getting just above 70. Some sun, some clouds through the afternoon. A couple of scattered showers as well. Forecast details coming your way in about 10 minutes.
All right, a little bit of everything. Thank you, Ken. Let's check the stories making news where you live. No budget, no pay. A Pennsylvania politician is sponsoring a bill to suspend the pay of the governor and state lawmakers in the midst of a 2-month late state budget impasse.
It's disheartening. Here we are 55, 56 days later, we don't have a budget, and people are complacent about it.
Democrat Jim Haddock of Luzerne County says to break that complacency, he sponsored bipartisan legislation that would suspend the pay of lawmakers, the governor, and the lieutenant governor if the budget is not done.
And then once it's signed by the governor, we would get our back pay. So we wouldn't lose any money, but we would feel the pain of not getting paid.
The latest state budget in Pennsylvania history came in 2017 under former Governor Tom Wolf. That spending plan was adopted 9 months past the due date. Over a dozen people remain hospitalized following that tragic tour bus crash 5 days ago on the New York State Thruway. The bus rolled over in Pembroke Friday afternoon while on its way to New York City from Niagara Falls. 5 passengers were killed. Many others were ejected from the bus. Marine Corps Reservist Aiden Jerome helped rescue a woman who got pinned beneath that bus for several hours.
It was so relieving seeing her finally get pulled out from underneath of there and taken over to the Mercy flight. It was super relieving. And there was a part of me that was like, wow, I feel really accomplished, but it wasn't over, right? There were still people that were trapped. There was still a lot to get done.
Jerome says he relied on his training in the Marine Corps to keep him calm and focused during that rescue mission. Authorities are focusing their investigation on the driver and whether distracted driving is what caused the accident. Classes begin this week for SUNY students who are part of a new free adult college program in New York. It's called SUNY Reconnect, and nearly 17,000 adults have enrolled. It provides college free of charge to anyone between the ages of 25 and 55 who pursue degrees in high-demand fields. High school starts next week in New York, and that means districts will get a chance to see how that new bell-to-bell smartphone ban will work. Reporter Scott Pringle.
Governor Kathy Hochul held a roundtable with Western New York school leaders, parents, and students in Niagara Falls to remind folks of the big change this school year: smartphones not allowed in school for K-12 students. The governor says they're better off without them.
When they go to school in kindergarten and when they're done graduating in 12th grade, I'm telling you, they're going to emerge more well-rounded, more well-adjusted, more well-educated.
The new policy allows students to carry simple cell phones without internet capability. Scott Pringle, New York.
Elmira, New York nurse practitioner Annie Sumrall says the new school year can fill some students with excitement, but others with dread.
When you go back to school, there's a lot of different stressors that come with back to school. New actual schools, like our kids that transition from elementary school to our middle school, or middle schoolers transitioning to high school for the first time. So just that uncertainty that comes with trying to navigate a new physical location can be very challenging for kids.
Sumrall says you can mitigate the anxiety of back-to-school jitters by focusing on routine.
Sticking to a good routine is super important. And I don't just mean a school routine. I mean, as far as like sleep goes, practicing good sleep hygiene, staying on schedule with your sleep, increasing proper nutrition, balanced meals.
She says watch for mood changes in assessing the mental health status of your child or children. The long legal battle between New York and the owners of a Syracuse nursing home is over with. The Van Dyne Center for Rehabilitation and Nursing will pay $12 million to settle neglect claims. This woman tells Spectrum News her aunt died as a result of that neglect at that nursing home.
It wasn't from an illness, it wasn't from an injury, it wasn't from a set of circumstances we can't control. It was entirely preventable. All they had to do was their job.
As part of the settlement, the Van Dyne Nursing Home will be overseen by independent monitors who will keep an eye on patient care and financial operations. A heated debate underway in Geneseo, New York, on whether to permit retail cannabis dispensaries. Geneseo resident Don Livingston supports recreational marijuana.
It's legal. It's here. To me, this is no different than wanting to bring in another restaurant into town, another liquor store, another convenience store. It's here.
Others argue do not go there, citing studies that show a sharp rise in cannabis use disorders in children. The drug's also linked to an increased risk in stroke and heart attacks. Currently, the only licensed pot shop in Livingston County is in Dansville. A central Pennsylvania delivery worker is accused of stealing from the very packages he was supposed to be delivering. Cops say $9,000 worth of merchandise was stolen by this guy. The Lower Swatara Police Department says the 28-year-old suspect stole jewelry, designer sunglasses, and even Pokemon cards. Surveillance video caught him in the act. Western New York authorities investigating a pepper spray incident happened at a popular restaurant.
Cheektowaga police responded to an alleged pepper spray incident at the Longhorn Steakhouse on Walden Avenue last night. According to broadcast reports, two people inside the restaurant were involved in a physical altercation and both used pepper spray, spraying more than 20 people during the incident, including children. According to reports, multiple victims were transported to local hospitals. The incident remains under investigation. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
This year's Little League World Series added about $40 million to the Williamsport, Pennsylvania economy. That's according to the Lycoming County Visitors Bureau. Over 70,000 people traveled to Williamsport for this year's event. Governor Shapiro says Little League is a quintessential part of America, and he's proud its home is right here in the Commonwealth. I know it's a little early to be talking snow, but a snowman has taken one Western Pennsylvania town by storm. Family Life's Brian Query.
Step aside, Olaf. The guy one Western Pennsylvania town can't stop talking about is Muffin's Frost Nugget, an adventurous 6-foot snowman that's melting hearts in Lower Borough, Pennsylvania. It started when Muffins was listed as free to a good home on a Facebook group. 4 teens who wanted to have a little fun and want to remain anonymous picked him up, put him by the park sign, and the rest is history. Every day, the teens post clues about where Muffins will be next. He's been spotted all over town at the park, the high school, Sheets, and the local bowling alley. Now he's achieved local celebrity status with his own Facebook page with over 600 followers. What began as a few neighborhood selfies has turned into a nightly scavenger hunt, and it's clear, at least for this town, it has snowballed into a fun adventure. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Sports next. We call it the 2-minute drill right here on the Family Life Noon Report.
The Bronx Bombers keep blasting away. Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob Ben Rice hit a solo home run. Jazz Chisholm Jr. went deep with a 2-run shot. And Jason Dominguez belted a 3-run blast as the Yankees put a 10 spot on the board to down the Nationals 10-5. Hey, since we're talking double-figure runs, how about the Amazons? Luis Torrens, a 3-run home run and 5 RBIs in the game. Jeff McNeil drove in 3. Mark Vientos had a pair of ribbies. Before it was all said and done, the Mets had 13 runs. They easily beat the Phillies 13-3 in their series opener. Philadelphia jumped out to a 3-0 lead, but it was all New York after that as they scored in every inning for the rest of the game. In St. Louis, the Cardinals ended the Pirates' night with a bang. 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, score tied, Alex Burleson picked up his 4th hit of the game and his first career walk-off home run. That gave the Cardinals a 7-6 victory over the Bucs. The loss for Pittsburgh snaps a 4-game winning streak. And it was one for the record books in Seattle. Cal Raleigh became the first catcher ever to hit 50 home runs in a season. He also joins Mickey Mantle as the only switch hitters in the game with 50 or more long balls. Raleigh also is the first switch hitter to hit at least 20 home runs from both sides of the plate. This one came from the right side, and the Mariners beat San Diego 9-6. Elsewhere in baseball, Boston, the Rays, Blue Jays, White Sox, Angels, and Athletics were American League winners. The Marlins, Brewers, and Dodgers won in the National League. The U.S. Open Tennis Championship, no major upsets, although 6-seeded American Madison Keys lost her match. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come, Fed firing feud, no phone zones, and the Habood that blew through Phoenix.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. One of the ideas that's taken for granted in the West is the idea of human dignity. But it has not always been the case that people were seen as valuable based on who they are. We often hear, for example, that democracy came from the Greeks, but it wasn't democracy for all. It was for some. It was for the wealthy. It was for the men. It was not for the ethnic minorities. It was not for the women. So where did the idea of universal human dignity come from? Well, the answer to that question is that it came from Christianity. And you don't have to believe other Christians who say that. You can actually listen to atheists, at least 2 of them. First of all, the one and only Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche, of course, is famous for saying God is dead. He also talked about human dignity being born out of a Christian ideal. He thought it was a bad idea. He thought it was a sign and show of weakness to acknowledge that everyone, including those who are disabled or who are older or the infirmed or something like that, somehow possess the same dignity as the rest of us. But he acknowledged nonetheless that the idea came from Christianity. Another is the philosopher Luc Ferry from the University of Paris. In his book, A Brief History of Thought, Ferry talks about Christianity being the source also of human dignity. And that's because, as he put it, Christianity offered an equality between human beings in dignity. In other words, not based on any characteristic or quality that was shared on the outside, because there is no quality or characteristic that all humans share on the outside. It was because of something intrinsic. Think about our own founding documents in the United States. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all are created equal. The next time you're in a crowded room, look around and just see how self-evident it is that all are equal. It won't be self-evident, in fact, at all, because again, there is no characteristic and no quality that all human beings share on the outside. Therefore, it's got to be something that we all share on the inside. And the only religion, the only worldview that grounds human dignity and has throughout history, as it applies to all people, is the notion that humans are made in the image and likeness of God. There has never been a more sweeping and dominating civilization on the face of the planet than the Western world. But there's a reason also we don't often talk about civilizations. As my friend Os Guinness says in our new film, Truth Rising, we usually think about civilizations when it comes to looking at history books or being in museums and looking at their artifacts. The great civilizations in the history of the world are no more. They've been swept into the dustbin of history. There is also no reason, Os says, for us to assume at any level that the Western world will have a different fate. Truth Rising is a new documentary project in partnership between Colson Center and Focus on the Family, featuring the one and only Os Guinness, talking about the civilizational moment that we are in and what that means for people of faith. The question we must answer is, how should we now live in this time and in this place? And that's why Truth Rising not only describes the current state of the Western world, but it highlights 5 stories of remarkable courage, people willing to tell the truth despite great opposition, despite great cost and consequence to them, and how God has used their stories of courage to inspire so many others. The global streaming premiere of Truth Rising will be Friday, September the 5th. To learn more about how to watch the film or host a watch party, or if you're a pastor, how to host a watch party in your church, go to truthrising.com. That's truthrising.com.
All right, thank you, John Stonestreet. By the way, we'll be talking to John next week about that film, Truth Rising. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to hear what Ken's got in the forecast next.
Good afternoon. Temperatures cooler than normal for this time of the year as we head through the afternoon hours today. And there will be some clouds from time to time. More clouds over portions of central and western New York, and a couple of scattered showers possible in those areas. Showers will be more isolated farther south and east in the area as we head through the afternoon, with a bit more sun in these areas. And in these areas, temperatures will likely get a bit above 70, but farther to the west, temperatures will stay in the 60s as we head through the afternoon. A couple of showers in spots this evening, then cooler overnight tonight. Many areas dipping into the 40s with partly cloudy skies. Some sunshine tomorrow, fairly pleasant day, and getting above 70 in most spots. An approaching cold front on Thursday will produce some showers and thunder showers later in the afternoon, particularly over portions of western and central New York and northwestern Pennsylvania.
All right, Ken, thank you. This is the Noon Report. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Tuesday, August 26th. It's a first in the 111-year history of the Federal Reserve. A sitting governor's been fired by the president. President Trump handing Lisa Cook her walking papers yesterday as he continues to battle the board over interest rates. The big question is, does he have the authority to do this? Cook calls the firing illegitimate and is refusing to resign. More from reporter Natalie Brand.
This is likely to trigger an intense legal battle ahead, and critics say it risks undermining the independence of the U.S. Central Bank.
Cook is accused of mortgage fraud. The president has been at odds with the Federal Reserve for months for not acting sooner to lower interest rates. A message today from Illinois Democratic Governor J.P. Pritzker to President Trump.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago.
President Trump's threatening to send in the National Guard after calling Chicago a killing field.
Chicago's a disaster. We may wait. We may or may not. We may just go in and do it.
Mr. Trump signed an executive order yesterday that creates new specialized National Guard units, which could be deployed to cities like Chicago for policing purposes. The commander-in-chief wants to send flag burners to jail. He signed an executive order that's likely to trigger a legal fight. Fox's Jared Halpern.
President says individuals who burn an American flag should be sentenced to a year in jail.
Because the people in this country don't want to see our American flag burned and spit on. And by people that are, in many cases, paid agitators.
An executive order signed by President Trump requires the Justice Department to prosecute flag burning and, if necessary, pursue litigation that would challenge the 1989 Supreme Court opinion that ruled flag burning is protected by the First Amendment. The president called that decision very sad, claiming flag burning can incite riots.
Now to Phoenix, where a massive dust storm called a haboob blew through last night. It stopped KPHO TV reporter Stephanie Dupree and her cameraman in their tracks.
It seemed like nothing, and then boom. All of a sudden, you couldn't see anything.
The high winds and low visibility shut down flights at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport and blanketed Arizona State's football stadium in an apocalyptic-like cloud of dust. Taking a trip over the Labor Day weekend should be a bit easier on the wallet this year. Katie Nastro with Going Travel says there's good news for those who travel by car.
We're anticipating that the lower gas prices we've seen most of the summer are going to hold, which is great because a lot of people do tend to opt for a long weekend road trip over Labor Day weekend.
AAA says gas prices are about 35 cents lower than last year for Labor Day. A smartphone ban for students starts next week in New York when students head back to the classroom for another academic year. Governor Hochul held a roundtable discussion with Western New York school leaders yesterday to remind folks about the big changes.
A distraction-free environment from kindergarten to 12th grade. Not allowed during lunch or study halls or phys ed class either.
Faculty, students, and parents can go to a newly formed website, ny.gov/phone-free, to find out more about their particular school district's smartphone policy. Next at noon, we're talking more tech with tech expert Brad Huddleston. He's devised a way to wean people off their social media addiction. Let's take a listen. I just want to start today, Brad, by asking you, when it comes to social media, how bad is it in terms of hours a day we are spending staring at screens?
Well, the numbers on that vary by country. By far, the worst country for that is South Africa. They're logging somewhere between 11 and 12 hours a day staring at screens. That would include social media and other activities. Here in America, it's right around 7 hours and 30 minutes. Teenagers, of course, spending about that much time. Parents, a little bit less. Australia, where I spend quite a bit of my time, they're the same. They're way up there as well. So for my dissertation, what I would like to do is do a pilot study in New York, do a case study in Australia, and take that data, see what emerges, and then create a global curriculum to help people detox. And so out of this data that emerges, and of course with a biblical worldview, the end game is to create this curriculum. So we're finally seeing, Bob, the needle move. It's been a long slog. I've been writing and speaking about this since about 2010 or 11.
Yeah.
And we're just now starting to see it's getting so bad around the world with this mental health crisis, a global mental health crisis brought on by all the digital saturation.
Yeah. When you talk about a digital detox, you're pretty adamant that you got to go cold turkey here. It's not a question of, okay, just in moderation. Why won't that approach work when it comes to social media addiction?
Well, when you talk about digital addiction, you're talking about dopamine levels on par with heroin and cocaine. Now, that's literal. That's medical. That's why these devices are so addictive. So when you talk about a detox, a parent, and they often do this, and Bob, these are not evil parents. These are well-meaning parents. They're rational. They're loving. They, for years, have said this: if you will behave yourself to their children during the week, do your chores, do your assignments, homework, and all of that, on Saturday, I'll give you, 3 hours of whatever you want to do on your screen. Not anything immoral, but your video games and so forth, Minecraft and that. But from a medical perspective, what I have to gently tell them is that cocaine is bad on Saturday, just like it is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so they're well-meaning, and they're trying to be loving and fair and limit and balance and all of that. But it just doesn't work because of the medical reasons of too much dopamine. So what we're about with the detox, you have to do exactly what a cocaine or a heroin addict would do. You can't limit your heroin use. You have to cut it off. Cold turkey, you're just going to have to lop it off, and then you have to go for an extended period of time. 4 to 6 weeks is what the data shows will, for the most part, handle the withdrawal symptoms, and then you have to develop new habits.
Yeah. I think really like we do with cigarettes, there's going to be Surgeon General warning labels on it eventually. We've already seen countries like Australia take action here, banning minors. We've seen even states, I think yours is the latest, Virginia, enact these cell phone bans at school. In New York, their ban will take effect in the fall, a bell-to-bell cell phone ban at school to get away from the anxiety, depressions, the suicidal ideation that's come with digital addiction. Do you think that these sorts of policies that are put in place by governments are realistically going to have any kind of a positive effect here when it comes to overall mental health?
Well, it won't do anything for a detox. What it will do, after the children have been, and the students have been off of the phones for, let's say, approximately 3 hours, then their attention spans, for the most part, will come back. So the first 3 periods, they're still going to have attention deficits because on their way to school, whether it be on the bus or their parents drive them, they're jacked up on dopamine, and that's going to take a while to settle down. So the actual culprit is at home. Yes, it's a good start, and the school should ban it, no question about it, and it's going to help. But the cure is going to be to have them come to school with normal levels of dopamine for learning and not from entertainment. So until the parents take the devices away and strictly forbid them in the mornings completely so that they come to school, if you will, with a blank slate, the problem is going to persist the first part of the day.
Yeah.
And then as they get closer to the bell to ring, because this is bell to bell, they're going to start to anticipate, and I believe not concentrate at all, because the only thing they're going to think about is, well, in 1 hour I get my phone back, in 20 minutes I get my phone back, in 50. So it's this vicious cycle where the problem really needs to be cured at home, and then the school backs that up with their policy. So I think we've done it in reverse. but I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take any bit we can get. But I just kind of want to bring this full circle because, Brad, I know there are more than one or two people out there right now saying, yes, I want to do this digital detox. What would you advise as far as first steps? How would you point them in the right direction?
For the extreme cases where there are suicidal ideation, self-harm accompanied with it, we run into this a lot. If it's really that bad, you really need to call a counselor and someone and I would strongly recommend biblically based. And then get some help from Christian circles. But for the average person, even though they're addicted, they can handle the detox. But those who did it in community succeeded far better than those who tried it alone. This is where getting involved with a church is so powerful, where you humble yourself and you go, hey, anybody want to do life together and do this detox together? Because every home is struggling just about, if not all of them. Even the teenagers, Bob, this is what touched my heart. The biggest resistance, as you can imagine, are teenagers. But the ones who said, you know what, my social circles are in this church, and because all of the parents were making us do the detox, it was relatively easy because all of my friends were doing it together.
Yeah.
Draw on each other's strengths and do it in community. You have a much better chance of long-term success when you do that.
All right, pretty important stuff there. Tech expert Brad Huddleston on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon. Temperatures cooler than normal for this time of the year as we head through the afternoon hours today. And there will be some clouds from time to time. More clouds over portions of central and western New York, and a couple of scattered showers possible in those areas. Showers will be more isolated farther south and east in the area as we head through the afternoon with a bit more sun in these areas. And in these areas, temperatures will likely get a bit above 70, but farther to the west, temperatures will stay in the 60s as we head through the afternoon. A couple of showers in spots this evening, then cooler overnight tonight. Many areas dipping into the 40s with partly cloudy skies. Some sunshine tomorrow, fairly pleasant day, and getting above 70 in most spots. An approaching cold front on Thursday will produce some showers and thunder showers later in the afternoon, particularly over portions of western and central New York and northwestern Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Ken. And finally at noon, today's National Dog Day, a time to celebrate that unique bond between humans and canines.
Rover says Americans treat our dogs like a member of the family. We spend over $3,000 a year on food, care, and clothing. We talk to them like they're human, saying things like, get out of my spot on the couch, and no, you can't drive. And in return, they give us the side eye, stick their nose up to pet food because people food is so much better, and offer us oodles of love. And that's what today is about. Appreciation of dogs. Just don't tell the cat. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, thank you, Bree. And just like that, our time is up. That's our world. The world we live in. Tuesday, August 26th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.